Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ayo Jackson. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to overcome the negative emotional baggages, conquering the obstacles, left behind by our harsh past, our history. As a parent, we must begin to really understand some things and begin to take them very, very seriously because they are indicative that the actions and choices made by our own parents have had a very significant impact on who we are and how we are developed, because the majority of us were born with some kind of character flaws that have the potential to cause us to experience difficulty in our roles as parents, or we can have observed a behavior that we subsequently replicated in our own parenting without ever stopping to realize, to think that, oh, there is actually a more loving and Christ-like way to interact with my children. Things that occurred to us when we were younger are responsible for the majority of the emotional scars we carry from our prior experiences. And a painful experience can alter the way we think, can make us either stronger, or can sometimes even cause us to behave in a very irrational manner. Does this imply that we cannot be held accountable for our actions as adults because of the things that occurred to us when we were younger? No. No. It's never acceptable to insult, to humiliate, to physically or verbally abuse another person, particularly a child. Jesus made it quite apparent that it won't be preferable for, in fact, it would be preferable for a person to, hang a stone on their neck and be tied around the town and to be and be cast into the sea than cause harm to any child. That's how serious the word of God expresses our dealings with children, that it is a terrible thing to try to hurt a child. So I'm not trying to say that the things that you experienced as a child are not valid or did not happen. But the process of correcting and instructing our children may be a very, very painful one. And the consequences of carelessness could perhaps cause some discomfort in the short term for for us and our children. And if a child does not heed the warning that you give when they are running close to the pool, for instance, and they run the risk of falling down, there is no justification for disciplining that child with harsh and nasty measures, because nature will catch up. Natural consequences, the child is going to feel hurt. So we need to understand some things. However, many parents still yell at their children, they spank their children for natural consequences that could have taken place, and they always implement the rod correction, the an eye for an eye, like the Old Testament has instructed. This is because some of us just want to focus on just the primary source of authority in our life to be the Old Testament, especially in the heat of a misbehavior. And parents forget that the New Testament discusses grace and instructs us to provoke our children's, not to provoke our children's anger, right? There are a lot of scriptures to back this up. But what I want to say is that the majority of parents who believe in the efficacy of punishment rather than discipline were themselves subjected to that kind of life. They were beaten, they were spanked, and they survived. And according to their beliefs, this is the appropriate way to also raise their own children, to interact with their children. However, children are very sensitive in a variety of ways these days. Some make it, some will not. Other adults have actually found a way to be able to forgive their own parents despite the fact that they were disciplined in a way that was punishment, if you know what I mean. Unfortunately, reality is that many adults have repressed their thoughts regarding their emotional pains, their hurting feelings they endured while they were children. And as a result, they behave in ways that do harm to the generations that follow us without even realizing it. Why do people who were treated poorly as children behave the same way towards their own children, especially when they become adults? After a number of years have passed, these grown up children eventually end up behaving in the only way they know how to parent themselves. People who have been abused themselves are more likely to be abusive to others. People who were reprimanded when they were growing up will frequently believe that as adults they have not been affected by their experiences, but when you look at their lives, they are actually reprimanding their children, they are complaining, they are criticizing every time, most times, and they think they are making corrections, but actually they need to listen to themselves. They are most times complaining, criticizing, and weighing the children down. Let's even talk about something very important. Learning about brain structure, which also talks about the way the brain functions and how we store memories, is the first step towards our healing, because as biology puts it, our brain's limbic system is where we retain memories of how we felt at a particular time, including recollections of unpleasant feelings. And this portion of the brain is nearly finished by the time a baby is born, and it begins to retain emotional memories as early as the 7th month of pregnancy, I think. And a baby brain begins to continues to develop. And when cruel words are spoken to a baby while it is still in the womb, the baby might feel the effects of those words. It is inevitable that you will make errors in judgment as you develop as a person and as you learn how to become more confident and how compassionate you are. All parents are not perfect. We are all flawed in some ways. And because of this, our children react emotionally rather than logically. And the younger they are, the more likely it is certain that emotional triggers may cause memories to be triggered in their own limbic systems as well as ours. However, when the logical thinking center of our brain matures, the child is able to react or respond in a way that is more suitable and more manageable. And this is the defining characteristics that differentiates a child from an adult. Childish behavior from conducting ourselves as grown-ups. The limbic system is the first part of the brain to be affected when something enters there. A global search performs at the speed of light, which sorts out and stores the emotional memories, both the ones that were conscious and unconscious, that the new stimulus brings up, and that's where trigger comes in. And then you will begin to see expressions in emotions, and this is done in response to a new stimulus. However, if a painful emotion is connected to a memory, that will take precedence. And if the person's suffering has not been acknowledged and forgiven, he or she will continue to behave in the same manner as he did when he was a child and the pain was inflicted for the first time. That same way is the way the person will feel. The individual is unable to actually access the region of the brain that would allow them to process the trigger and behave in a more logical manner. And that's why you see that the mental anguish interrupts the effects that the stimuli would normally have. There are a lot of parents who are raising their children in the same manner in which they were raised because of the way their brain is functioning. Poor behavior causes parents to become, furious. They slap their children, they yell at them, they say things, they do something else that is harmful to the child. And some others even argue that because the Bible permits us to, use the rod of correction, parents have no reason to feel guilty about hitting their children restlessly. And they call it discipline. It's fascinating to note that once parents learn how to cope with the negative baggage of emotions that they are carrying as children, they will cease inflicting pain on their own children, and instead they'll be able to focus on helping them. When it comes to instructing our children in the necessary life skills, parents can nearly always come up with a method that is superior to others and more efficient. If they are unable to come up with an efficient solution, then we'll end up spanking and yelling and talking, and will not get changes in behavior. The fact is that spanking is now administered by is to be administered by a reasonable parent. On the other hand, significantly, it reduces the likelihood that the child will be misabused. Is that what I want to say? But really, can you see why it's so important for parents to sort out the trash in their own lives before they can effectively instruct or correct their children? Because our approach is to take care of the first 10 years of our children's lives. Parents who are resilient and compassionate, who have emotional intelligence, we never use phrases as you what is wrong with you? You are so good at getting you upset, you know. Oh, we need to come to make peace with these things that I'm talking about. You never lack options when it comes to choosing how to bring up your children. If you feel that you are acting without thinking, you should seek the assistance of parent coaches. Locate the traumatic experiences from your own past that is driving you to act impulsively. Forgive your parents, forgive the person who wronged you, put their experiences, behind your back, and start savoring the freedom to pick methods that are loving and useful for dealing with your children, rather than methods that are hasty and potentially damaging for them. There is a part of our brain that I just spoke about, that the limbic system, and by the time our children are born, that part of the brain is fully developed. We want to be able to help our children in the long run. So let's help rebuild their subconscious mind by deliberately putting in information that we want. And it's not just information, the truth, which can never be cleaned away from the Word of God. And that's exactly what the World Changer Parenting is about. You need to get into our circle. You need to get into our support system to be able to really understand how you can transform your parenting journey to be able to accommodate emotional intelligence, to be able to accommodate raising children that can think for themselves because they have a brain, and not just children that are responding to emotions, that are responding based on how they are feeling. Right? Because we want to do better. And when we know better, we will most likely do better. We want to lay hold of creating lovely memories that will foster creativity, innovation, excellence, and sustainability of the world.